Hey guys, today we're going to be looking at and installing the Smoked Tint Kit for 2018 Mustangs. This is a complete kit that'll cover all of the 2018 Mustang's exterior lighting. The kit costs about $55, and this is going to be your higher quality option when you compare it to the other option that you have on the website. The install for this is easy. It's a 1 out of 3 wrenches in the difficulty meter, but it is a little bit time consuming, and I'll show you how to get it on the car now. The tools that you need for this install are the supplied squeegee, a microfiber towel, a heat gun, a soap and water mixture, and some Windex. Alright guys, so we're going to start up here with a headlight simply because it's a big piece. It doesn't have a lot of bends to it. We'll get a good feel for how the vinyl will lay. So the things that I have up here with me, I have my headlight piece right here. I have some Windex because you are going to want to make sure you clean all of your light surfaces prior to trying to install any vinyl on top of them. They need to be clean and dry. I also have a water and soap mixture as well as another microfiber towel that I'm going to use to wrap around my squeegee, because if you just use the squeegee you run the risk of possibly scratching the vinyl. And I have a heat gun here too just to help me apply the vinyl if I need it. So I'm going to start by cleaning this off with some Windex. The headlight's pretty dry now, so I'm going to take my microfiber towel. I have my squeegee right here. I'm going to spray the headlight with our soap and water mixture. The reason why you want to use the soap and water mixture is so when you lay the vinyl on, you have a little bit of room to maneuver the tint as you'd like to. So not only am I going to spray the headlight, but I'm going to spray the back of the vinyl as well. And I'll say this now too, this tint does look pretty dark, but it's still going to allow 80% of the light to come through. So you're not really blacking out any of your lights. You are going to get a much darker appearance, but you're not blacking anything out. So with our soap and water mixture sprayed on both surfaces, we're going to go ahead and lay the vinyl on. All right, so we're just trying to line up our vinyl right now. The soap and water mixture is going to allow us to move. You can see my tint's moving. This is going to allow me to line it up perfectly. Now that I have the vinyl laid on pretty much where I want it, I'm going to take my squeegee, I'm going to wrap it in the microfiber just to make sure that I don't scratch the tint when I do this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to work all of the air bubbles and the fluid out from behind the vinyl. So I'm going to try to get this to stick on the headlight a little bit more. What you guys are going to have to do, you are going to have to hold it. If you don't hold it down, it's just going to move around on you. So I have this pretty much on the way to being in a good spot where I like it. What I'm going to do is I'm having a little bit of bubbling up here, so I'm going to use my heat gun. I'm just going to apply a little bit of heat to it. That's going to dry out some of the fluid on the other side and help this stick a little bit better to my headlight. So I'm going to put a little bit of heat on it, and then I'm going to just continue doing what I'm doing with my squeegee. All right, so as this is heating up, you can actually see it's starting to conform to the headlight a lot better. I lost a big part of that bubble. And the vinyl's laying on here a lot nicer now. I have some small bubbles I still need to work out, but the heat's helping me a lot. I have one little problem right here. So I'm basically just going to keep working this piece of tint until it's laying perfectly. You can see how the heat helped it to conform a little bit to the headlight. And right now I have absolutely no bubbles and no pops. The heat worked really well. I'm actually really pretty excited. So now we're going to move down to our turn signal down here. First things first, we're going to clean it off with some Windex. Gonna spray it with our soap and water mixture. We'll grab our tint. Spray the adhesive side of the tint with the soap and water mixture. And we're going to get this positioned on here. So one thing I will say about this kit, because it is the higher quality kit, the better quality materials actually make it a lot easier to install. You saw how easy that headlight went into place, and this is exactly the same. So this kit, the tint in it is a little bit thicker. It's more flexible and it conforms a lot easier. And those are all things that are really going to cut down on the time that it takes to install this, as well as how good it looks after you're done installing. So I have our turn signal piece laid pretty well right here. going to use my squeegee, try to get it in place a little bit better. So I'm gonna grab my heat gun now, use a little bit of heat. If you guys are gonna use a heat gun, you're just gonna have to be careful. If the heat is too hot for your hand, then it's too hot for the tint or too hot for your paint. So you just pay attention to how hot you're making things and only use what you need as far as heat. I'm just gonna try to work the tint a little bit as I'm heating it, or not. And you never really wanna leave the gun in one spot for too long when you're heating this. All right, so you can see how the heat's helping me just conform this to the rest of the turn signal. So for the most part, a tint kit like this is easy to install, especially when you have nice vinyl. It's just time consuming, so you just have to be patient. So curved pieces like this can take a little bit longer just because it takes a little bit longer to work this and get it to sit nicely on a curved section. I'm gonna try my squeegee again now that we have a little bit of heat. Just gonna try to tuck this under our turn signal here. We will need a little bit more heat to get this to lay perfectly, but it's starting to look better. All right, so I'm going back to the heat gun. I'm gonna put some heat under the vinyl here, just see if I can get this side squared away. So with a tint kit like this, if you guys end up coming up with a couple bubbles under the surface after you've finished, the majority of the time those bubbles will go away in the sunlight. So don't expect your tint kit to go on perfectly. If you do have some water or air bubbles underneath, those will evaporate within the next couple days. Okay, we're getting a lot better now. This right here is the hardest part of the curve on the turn signal, so I'm not surprised that it's taking the longest time right here. I'm gonna use my squeegee, just flatten this out a little bit. Make sure we're gonna lay nice and straight and flat. I'm just holding the corner up on this just to make sure it stays exactly where I want it to. You guys can see how helpful the heat is and how I'm just sort of chasing the tint from one side to the other. I'm just working my way from one side to the other and getting this to lay on there nicely. We are almost done with this side. All right, so I see one little bubble in there. I'm gonna try to get that out with my squeegee and just make sure that this is laying all flat. That's gonna finish up our turn signal on this side. So our process is gonna be the same pretty much everywhere we go. I'm gonna take a little bit of Windex, clean the light off, spray both the surface area and the adhesive side of the vinyl with the soap and water mixture. So this vinyl is 5 mil PVC vinyl, and it's rated for 5 years of outdoor use for you guys that are worried about your daily drivers or how long this tint will last. Something else that I really like about this kit, other than the quality of material, which makes this a lot easier to install than some other kits that you guys might come across, is the fact that this tint has a gloss finish on it. I just think that it looks really nice once you get it on the car, especially during the daytime when the sun's hitting this, or even when your lights are on. I just think that it gives it a nicer finish. You guys see me constantly keep my hand here because, like I said before, I'm constantly checking on the heat of the gun because if it's too hot for my hand, it's too hot for the car's paint, it's too hot for the tint. So I leave my hand close by, and I always keep the gun moving. I never really let it sit in one spot. You can see how the vinyl, it just helps the vinyl to conform a little bit to those curved areas. So now that we have the lights done on the front of the car, we're gonna move around to the side and do the turn signal on the side mirror. So these right here are your side mirror turn signals. We're gonna do the same thing, clean them off with Windex. Spray a little soap and water. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna line up this corner first where the piece is actually cut. Because you can see I have a little bit of extra vinyl here on the end of the side mirror. I can always just cut that off with a razor blade. What's more important is lining up this edge right here closer to the front of the car. So I'm just gonna leave this little tab hanging off for now until I get this all settled. I'm actually gonna use my fingernail and just get the tint to sit right in underneath the side mirror trim, just so it looks a little bit better. Grab my squeegee, I'm gonna use the corner of the squeegee. All right, so we're just gonna apply a little heat to this. And we're gonna take a razor blade to cut off our little tail end here. We'll apply our Windex, our soapy water. So these pieces are side specific, so just make sure you have the correct side and the correct orientation. I'm gonna wipe off, I sprayed a lot, so I'm gonna wipe off some of this moisture now that I have the vinyl positioned where I want it. And that should help me get this on there a little bit faster. So I do have one small bubble right here in the middle, so I'm gonna use my heat gun, just apply a little heat to this and see if I can get it sitting a little bit better. So with our side marker done, we're going to flip the car around and move on to our taillights and our diffuser reflectors. So we flipped the car around, now we're gonna start our taillights. We're gonna start by cleaning them off with Windex, and I'll point out now that the taillight sections are piece by piece, so we'll be doing each louvered section of the taillight one piece at a time. So the taillight section might actually be the most challenging piece. You will need the heat gun a lot for this section. You have a lot of bends here that you're trying to get the vinyl to conform to. So once again, this is something you're just gonna have to be patient with and put in the time to do it right. All right, so we have it in there decently well. I'm gonna go straight to the heat gun to try to get this to conform a little bit. So at first you may think the vinyl piece looks a little small, but once you add heat to it, you guys saw what I did, where I had a big bubble, I sort of peeled up and then I replaced the vinyl, and it's actually stretching to fit, and it's a really nice fit right now. Like I said, it's just one of those things you have to be patient with and work at and get it to lay the way you want it to. Really making sure that I get the edges of the vinyl so that this is wrapped around that tail light. All right guys, so we're ready for our last section of this tail light here. So you guys might notice this too as you're doing your taillights. In the case of the taillights, the heat gun really is going to be your best friend. The vinyl fits really nicely, but when it comes to the curves of the taillights, I've just been using the heat gun to stretch the vinyl a little bit and really get a nice fit. So you're probably going to have to do the same thing too. Just know that the heat gun really helps out a lot in this case. So right now I'm leaving the top kind of loose. I'm going to get the bottom set into place on the taillight. Then I'll take the heat gun and use it to stretch the vinyl a little bit and get it sitting in the top part of the taillight really nicely. So you guys can see how just a little bit of heat helps you out a lot here. Stretch the vinyl up and now it's perfect fit. I'm just gonna keep working at this until it wants to lay nicely. I'm working out any bubbles or wrinkles that I see right now while I still can. All right, we had a little bubble, so I'm just peeling up the corner here, just seeing if I can get rid of that. Probably have to rework this a little bit with the heat gun. There we go, it's a lot better now. All right, and that's gonna wrap up the taillight on this side of the car. All right, so on the other side, process is gonna be the same. We're gonna clean the light off with Windex. Then use our soap and water mixture and get the vinyl set. So right now, I'm just trying to squeeze out some of the soap and water mixture. I did use a lot on this light, and that can make it more difficult sometimes. It'll help you get the vinyl positioned really nicely, but it will extend the time of how long it'll take to get this piece on the car. So I'm using the microfiber. I am pressing down on the vinyl to try to squeeze out some of that soap and water. You can see the vinyl starting to stick now. So once again, I'm gonna leave the top sort of hanging out like that until I can get some heat on it and stretch it up. But before I do that, I wanna make sure that the bottom part of the vinyl is sitting pretty nicely and isn't moving around on me. I'm just taking my squeegee in the crease right here and making sure the vinyl is just sitting really nicely before I move on to the next section. So at this point, our taillights are finished and we only have a few other small pieces to do. We're gonna do our third brake light, a reverse light, and our reflectors down here in the lower valence. So after our taillights, everything else that we have left to do is gonna be pretty easy and straightforward. Right now, we're gonna do our reverse light. So now we're gonna move on to our valence. These also are side specific, so just make sure you're grabbing the right side. All right, so we're gonna clean this off. Use our soap and water mixture. Grab our vinyl. All right, so the last thing we're gonna do is our third brake light. Now, I will say this kit comes with a third brake light for both fastback models and convertible models. The convertible model third brake light's a little bit larger, so if you have a fastback like we do, make sure you just grab the smaller third brake light vinyl. All right, now our soap and water mixture. All right, I am gonna use the heat gun a little bit on this just to help it adhere a little bit better. All right guys, that's gonna wrap up this review and install. Keep in mind that you can always check this tint kit out more online right here at AmericanMuscle.com.